Welcome back, guys, to the WRPF podcast, episode number 13, Lucky 13. I'm your host, Alex Uslar. This week, I am joined by my friend, Nabil Lahlou. Nabil and I met in person just last year at the American Pro. And what do you know? Just like almost every other guest I've had on the podcast so far, he's in prep for the American Pro also. He's coming off of a massive tune-up meet that he just hit, breaking another all-time world record. And Nabil is also he's a pretty young gun. He just aged out of juniors. He's the newer generation, much younger than myself, the over 30 club. So I told Nabil I'd love to have him on, talk about his recent performances, talk about kind of powerlifting in his eyes, as he's seen it, someone who hasn't been in the sport very long, and just kind of hear your background and who the hell you are besides being the fucking phenom. And we'll dive into that story too. That's such a good one. I remember that's what got you a lot of initial recognition on social media. And yeah,
It was
welcome,
def-
Bill.
it was definitely the first boost of my lifting career, I would say. Pretty funny one.
Absolutely. That's
Yes,
where I heard of you. So we'll get into that all in a second. Let's start from square one. Let's start from the beginning. Who the hell are you? Where are you from? What got you to the sport of powerlifting? What were you doing before powerlifting?
absolutely. So I was born and raised in the south of France. So I grew up in Nice. I'm sure some of you guys are familiar with this place, is the French Riviera. I come from a tennis background, which is not very common when it comes to the powerlifting sport. People usually come from, I don't know, mainly I would say football. Here's like football players or wrestlers or stuff like this. But I played 14, almost 15 years of tennis. So my dad literally put me on this court when I was like 2 years old, and just stick with it up until I was 17. And then I kind of lost interest, started going out with friends. I was like, okay, maybe I'm gonna back off with the tennis and just start enjoying life. Did my high school in France, and then eventually moved to the US. Didn't know I was gonna stay here. My mom was like, hey, because I have an uncle living in Virginia, and she was like, go visit him. I used to go visit him like once every 5 years or so, 3, 4 years. And it was like, hey, if you want to do your college, like your 4 years of college here, you're more than welcome to stay. I got friends that can help you out. I know the language barrier was a big thing for me because I didn't speak English at that time. So in my head, I was like, it's a really good thing, experiencing new culture, and I knew the adaptation was going to be hard, but I was like, hey, look, you're young, you'll be able to learn a new language, experience a different culture, and I just did it. So stayed there, applied for college, went to school to Virginia, went to George Mason University, and as I
Let's slow
was,
down a little bit. That first of all, that's amazing. So played tennis. Your dad put you in tennis. You obviously had a lot of discipline from playing, doing the
yes,
same thing your entire life, it being
I
ingrained.
am,
And
yes,
but honestly, it's like tennis is, I think, super underrated. You're right. You don't hear any ever about any all-time world record holder powerlifter that came from a tennis background. You just don't hear of it. But
yes,
tennis is a very athletic sport. You're having to move
it is
constantly.
correct. It's very explosive. You got to be aware of what you're doing, and it's also very technical. So they have similarities. So that's why I kind of like it. Um, I really didn't know that I was gonna do powerlifting. I guess I just like kind of like merged into just going to the gym because I was a very small kid. All those tennis players, you can't have big muscles as a tennis player because you
Yeah.
got to
So
be very
while
fast
you're playing tennis as a teenager, you weren't lifting any weights. It's not like
at
you're a
all.
football player or anything that you're hitting the weight rooms in between. There's none of that.
Nope.
And let me ask
Yeah.
you, there in France, in that culture, in that time, this is like, 6, 7 years ago, was working out very popular? Did you have friends who worked out and you kind of knew about that scene, or it was just sports and kids your age were just into sports?
Yeah, it was just kids in my school just playing sports. Nobody was really had that lifting culture. It was I've experienced that lifting culture when I first moved here. I didn't never experience that back then at home. People were just like going on runs, or I mean, I'm sure a lot of people back then still were going to the gym, but it was probably only one commercial spot where you could train in the whole city. So it's like it was not a big thing. But I feel like now it's really expanding overseas. Like
It
it's
is. It's
now
fine. It's definitely not like caught up at all to where we are, but it's like if you look at France, if you watched IPF Worlds, I think they
Mhm.
took second place, best team, and they had tons of medalists. So France
Oh yeah.
country is obviously catching up, but in the grand scheme of things, when you go overseas to Europe, you go to these other countries, it's hard for you to find a semi decent gym. Nowadays here in the US, especially me who's someone who's been around for 10 years now, it's like any city you go into, you can more or less find a strength gym or somewhere that has
Mhm.
semi decent stuff for you. But yeah,
Absolutely.
so
But
I
I
think
feel like
Europe is slowly catching up.
slowly, yes, and that's big thanks due to I'm sure Panagiotis, the French, the Panache 66, actually that actually just won the Worlds this year. He he's doing a lot of good things for the sport in France. He basically all those French lifters that you see that win worlds and like medalists and all that stuff. He's the one that actually coached them, and he built a team, and he's doing very good for some stuff very good for the sport. So I'm happy to see it.
Yeah, I got to meet him at the Sheffield, and we did a
Oh
sauna
no way!
together. He was cutting with Tiny Tiff, just supporting her in the sauna, even though he had just competed the weekend before and cut a shitload of weight in the sauna. He's like, "Yeah, let's hang out. Same with me. I wasn't competing; I was just hanging out in the sauna." But he was a very, very nice, cool dude, and it was cool to see him in his element there as well, and be a part of that one IPF event, my kind of one and done that I was able to be a part of before they give you the
That's,
ban.
uh,
Yeah,
but
man.
yeah,
But then take me to okay, you're 18 years old, 17, 18 years old, moving over to the United
yep.
States, don't speak a
We're,
damn lick of English, gotta learn English, right?
Yep, had to, was forced, and I'm glad I will because I remember the first semester, like, oh man, it was a struggle. I'm happy because I was very fortunate to have like very understanding teachers, and like they guide me through it. It's like it's okay and stuff. But I did have to like I put the work in. I really had to work my butt off to get there. And eventually now I'm kind of like losing my French. I'm thinking in English now. So it's like sometimes when I have conversation with family and I'm like, okay, how do you say it again? Oh, okay, that's how you say it. Okay. So
It's
it's kind of
crazy
funny
how the mind
how just
works.
hmm hmm it's I remember after a year of being in the US, that's when I actually got first dreamed in English. So, and that's when I knew, okay, now I'm probably starting to be fluent in the language.
That's very
And
cool.
then I felt more
You
comfortable.
do
Yeah,
some
it's
damn
good.
Rosetta Stone, or how do you learn? That's so crazy to me. I live in Miami, right? And
Yep,
the dominant language spoken here is Spanish. My family's
Spanish.
from South America. My family's Venezuelan. Most of my family
Yep.
speaks Spanish. I don't speak a word of it, even though I've been around it forever. And I'm just like, where the hell do I start? It's just the concept of it is just so difficult.
It's true. It's like when you know a little bit, like I'd say, 10%, you know how to say the few things. If you go to that place for more than 6 months, then you'll be good.
Yeah.
You just gotta stay there and be around people and only hear that language. You'll be able to break that barrier.
So take me through, did you have social media at this time? When did you find social media? What led you to the weight room, specifically a regular gym? And where did then
Yep.
that start connecting you to social media and actually powerlifting?
Yep. So I didn't have any social media at that time. I just had a personal Instagram, like most of the people. But I started posting for the first time uh, right before the pandemic, actually, right before the pandemic. And the reason why I started lifting is because I have a cousin of mine uh, who called me a skinny bitch, and it kind of like hurt me because I never had to deal with those like comments before. Obviously, it was making a joke, but I took it very personally,
Well,
and it's like maybe
European
he's
people are also much more, especially French. They're very lean and slender,
very lean,
right?
yeah, and
Well,
there's
that's because America,
nothing
we're full of obesity and people that are way overweight and the food and everything. But
exactly. The food was a huge, like huge thing because the food industry is very different. Overseas, obviously, the portions are like a little bit smaller, and the quality of the food. I would say is way higher. So when I
Yes.
first got here, I started having acne, breaking down, feeling low, like low energy and I didn't know what it was, but I'm guessing it was because of the food that I was eating every day. And then eventually my body kind of adapted and everything went good. But yeah, I started lifting because he called me a skinny bitch. And I was weighing around 105 pounds. I remember my first weigh-in was at 105 as a 19-year-old kid.
All right. In his defense, you were a skinny bitch.
I was, he was 100% correct.
Uh,
But that was my starting point, 19, and then I was like, okay, I want to change. So I started just going in the gym, not knowing what I was doing. I was wearing a hoodie with a hat. I didn't want anybody to look at me. I was very insecure. Um, I started just doing some machines because at that time, well, I had no experience, so I was just doing a little bit of trying to grow my pecs, trying to grow my arms, and trying to grow my back, not really legs, right? And that lasted for like 2, 3 months, and then I was like, oh, let me do some body weight training, calisthenics. So I did that for 3 or 4 months, where just like I was doing a bunch of pull-ups. I was like, my goal at that time was, oh, I want to get to my 10th pull-up. Oh, I want to get my first muscle up, and how many other push-ups. And I did that for quite a while. And then I did 6 months of Olympic weightlifting just because I thought it was fun, and at that time I was pretty mobile, so I did that for 6 months, and my
what kind of
progression
gym were
was
you training at this time? Was it a commercial gym, or you'd found like a gym that had more readily available stuff like Olympic weightlifting stuff?
it was kind of like a lifetime. I don't really know the name, but it was definitely a commercial gym. Yeah, and they had bumper plates. They had uh like pound plates and decent bars, I mean, which was all I needed to be honest to get progress in what I was doing. But I got very frustrated with my Olympic weightlifting progression. I was only adding like zero point 0.5 to like a pound on my lifts every like month and a half. So I was like, okay, maybe I'm just gonna try to just stick with squatting. I'm gonna start to stick with squatting, benching, and deadlifting. At the time, I was still doing some conventional, didn't touch sumo, and I did that for uh, stay at that gym for like another 3 months. So by that time, I was already a year in, and I didn't know what powerlifting was at all. I didn't know it was a sport. I was just enjoying doing the main compound movement, I would say. And then after a year, that's when the pandemic kind of hit like 2 or 3 months prior. Um, I remember a year and a couple months into my training, I hit, I think it was a 495 conventional deadlift. So I was already hitting 495. So I was like, okay, I have some potential. Let's stick with it. And then I did my research on the sport. People came to me, was like, oh, you're strong. Do you powerlift? I was like, no, I don't know what's powerlifting. He's like, oh, it's this sport. And so I started going on social media, looking at people, creating an account, and eventually that's when I started posting.
That's
So
crazy. So it
year,
wasn't even until 2020, pandemic time, you start hearing the word powerlifting, you start doing research, and then that's what starts leading you to social media.
that's correct. Yes.
That's crazy. And that's also, I think, very much a European thing because again, the times kind of follow each other, right? And I think, in Europe, social media probably was not near like when you were still there in 2017, 2018, whatever it is, social media was not really a thing. It wasn't big. Not everyone had it as opposed to here in the States. If you didn't have social media, people look at you like you're a weirdo, right?
Absolutely, yes. Yes. So
That's
yeah, that's how I started this lifting career.
So that's crazy. So let's really dive into right there. You make a social media, start seeing this new world. You start seeing these lifters and these people doing things on social media. At that time,
Yep.
you create one yourself, but there's no
Yep.
relevancy. Like we'll get into when you started
Uh,
getting relevancy in a second. But who were you looking up to? What lifters did you start seeing around this period of time in powerlifting and that initial exposure?
yeah. So one of the first page I followed was obviously King of the Lifts. So I was seeing a lot of like strong lifters, like back then, I think that was like the last year of Keller Williams. I was like seeing some 900 pound deadlifts, like stuff like this. And I was like, this is crazy stuff to me. Like I thought I was doing something good with my little 495 deadlift. And then I go and open my app and I see some people doing 900 pounds, weighing under 200. So I was like, oh man, I got some work to do. But one of my main source of motivation at that time was actually the panache because I was weighing right under his body weight. I was probably 135, 140. It was competing in the 145s, but I was seeing him squatting like five, like well over five, like 550. I said, I want to do that. And I was seeing him doing some 600 pound deadlifts for reps. I was like, this is so cool. The guy is literally my weight and he's lifting way more than me. He was benching the mid 300s, probably high 300 at that time. So it's like, that was so cool. And I found also Bob. I think that's when Bob Matthews just went out of his like stunning era and kind of like dive into like proper training, trying to compete at USAPL Nats or something. And I was like, I found that very cool. And I remember I DM'd him, I DM'd Bob and Deep Nash, and those two are the ones that stick with me because they're the two that actually replied to me when nobody knew me. So I
Right.
was like, yeah, I was watching their journey, following everything, and finding motivation from those two mainly. Bob and Deep Nash was the main two for me.
I love it. So then this is 2020, pandemic's hitting, you start getting into powerlifting. At this, you decide probably, I want to compete, I want to start pushing this. Did you start training at a
Yeah.
regular powerlifting gym? And what did it look like as you began preparing for your first powerlifting meet at the end of 2020?
So yes, I had a meet scheduled for April of 2020. And obviously, we all know what happened. I got canceled. But I was training still in the commercial gym, but I was also training in a different spot. So I had two places. When I wanted to do some more heavy lifting, it's a place called the District Barbell. It's a very small, low-key chill spot with a nice little community. Like there's like not a lot of people going there, probably like 10 to 15. So it was more like good for me to very dive into my lifting and getting strong. I didn't have a coach. I was just doing my own thing at that time. And well, it got canceled. The competition got canceled. So I didn't know what to do. I was a broke boy at that time. Didn't have money. I was living at my uncle's. Bills were getting paid, and I had to figure out a way, to lift weights during those 6 months almost where we're just locked down. And I ended up like finding a way to make money. And bought like three sets of plates, so 315, some bands, build their own platform, and I built my own like bench. I went to Home Depot. I built the whole my own rack out of plywoods. I did everything on my own, and I just started lifting in my garage for 6 months straight. And that's really when I saw my strength and my progress going to a better spot, I would say.
That's so awesome. That's such a testament because it's like so many of like these a lot of younger kids who had maybe been doing it for a while longer before you. People were spoiled with competition equipment, whatever it is, and just be complaining and kind of getting some stuff done, maybe just maintaining. But it's very cool that even on those less than ideal circumstances and homemade shit, which I'm gonna just go scroll back in your Instagram. I want to see that if you have video. That's super
Oh
cool.
yeah. Oh, I will send you all of it.
Oh
I
man.
don't know if it's still there. Maybe if you scroll all the way down, maybe I archive some posts, but I will send you the
That's
OG garage lifts.
That's so cool, man. And it's like that's where you were able to start excelling and getting stronger just with that focus and that commitment. So that's
Yeah,
very
so
cool.
that's really when I turned to a deadlift specialist because I really wanted to excel in the movement, and I've learned that I was born with amazing leverages for it, and I didn't want that to go to waste. So I was I was deadlifting every day, man, almost every day. Yeah, almost every day for 6 months. And prior to lockdown, I hit a I failed a 475 sumo deadlift. I was trying to get into the sumo, and I felt 475 right before lockdown. And right after lockdown, I hit like a 635, I think.
Wow.
635. Yeah, 635. So I added almost a plate and a half on that bar.
Right. And also you
Yeah,
have so much time to dial in the movement, dial in the technique, get it correct because it's such a technical movement and become a
it was.
specialist at that movement, right?
Yeah. Basically, all I was, from my understanding for what worked for me is, um, really like opening up my hips, doing the stuff people don't really do, but every day I was doing my stretchings twice a day and for like a decent amount of time. And block pulls was something that really helped me. People think block pulls is good for, like actually the lockouts, but it's more so about the starting position because it really taught me how to maintain that hip height and stay in that position, and
You
to
had a
remain
wedge kind
patient.
of in an easier position and then work your way down and get it perfect where they need to be. Right, that's a
Yes.
big mistake people make where they'll start with their hips way too low off the floor, and it's not, they're thinking they're trying to get more leg drive like that, but they're not getting the proper as opposed to having that higher hip and scoop in, right?
Yep. Exactly. So yeah, I was taking blocks basically, like about this big, and I was starting week one here. I'll hit a certain weight, and by week four, I was always trying to hit that weight off the ground. So by week two, I was just reducing the range of motion and see how close I could get to it. And it worked for me. I don't know. I don't hear a lot of people doing that, but in 6 months, it really, really blew up my deadness. Like doing heavy block pulls, one, it primed my CNS, and two, I was able to just hit more weight at the end of it. So
And you're
I
deadlifting
had
every
no
day, so that helps too.
exactly,
And it's
exactly.
when you have folks listening at home and all you young kids that want to deadlift an all-time world record like Nabil, that's not necessarily the best decision for you. He also just has
Nope.
insane leverages for it that like the recoverability, there's not a whole lot of accumulated fatigue because with a decreased range of motion, his long arms,
Correct.
etc. He's not blowing up his back. I'm sure you've never even had a back injury or anything like that, knock on wood yet. So no,
I've
yeah,
I've had not really back. I had a few back tweaks. I had a I've tweaked my pelvis a few times to the point where the first time, but that's all part of the sport, you know.
yeah,
So the first time I did it, couldn't walk for 3 weeks. I was in bed, but that was my fault. If I was, if I forced myself to be more active and be on my feet, I would have recovered way faster. I just didn't know it was my first injury into the sport, so it was like, I can't do anything. I'm just gonna be lazy,
hospitalize
which
myself.
slowed,
Right.
yeah, which slowed down the recovery by a lot. Because when the same thing happened, the second time it happened on the other side of my pelvis, it took me like a week to recover. Like
Right.
literally in a week. I remember I was at Johnny's and I just did some Miguel Big Three, some core stabilizer, and then after a week, boom, I was back on my feet. Not a month.
Right.
So I mean, it's good because you got to be able to like go through that because I feel like people take injuries and they're like, oh man, I'm never gonna come back. But no, I feel like injuries are like the stepping stone to your next level. So I mean, like if you're able to overcome that injury, you just know one, you'll be able to come, you'll be able to know what to do if it happens again. You'll be more prepared and mentally, I don't know, it just helps me out because I know like, oh, I overcome this. No, nothing phases me.
I love it. I love it. I love it. So let's go back. Let's throw it back to 2020. When
Yep.
does lockdown start? How was lockdown in Virginia? When did that start ending and you realize the competitions are going to get back on the calendar?
Yeah. So, are we talking about the ending?
Yeah. End of COVID
Okay.
into end of 2020. Yep.
Okay. So end of 2020, it was gym starting reopening around in my area. It was probably like mid June, July, and it was not all the gyms. It's just one, I think. So, but the thing is, the person, my uncle who I was living with, he's germophobic. So he was like, "You're not going anywhere. You already have your setup here, so you train here until we have a better idea of what was going on." So I was stuck for a little bit longer. I think I started going back to the gyms like end of July. That's really when I went back, and he really didn't know. I had to be very sneaky about it, but I ended up going back to the gym end of July, mid-July, and the meet I was supposed to do in April, they moved it to October. So October 2020 was the first time I competed.
So talk to me about that first meet. How did that go?
Terrible, man. Bad. Couldn't. Oh my God. Oh, so uh, I couldn't sleep. First of all, I'm sure most of the people the first meet, like can't they just
Nerves. Oh yeah.
overthink about it. Yeah, just can't sleep. So I was probably on like an hour, running on an hour of sleep. Hop in the shower, took a shower, drove myself to the meet. I was lucky enough; it was just 20, 15 minutes away from the house. So I get there and I had no handler, so I was on my own basically, and I didn't know what to do. So I was just asking questions, and it was pretty. I'm glad the meet was well run. It was only like probably 50 lifters, so it was pretty chill. And once I got there, I saw it was flight A, so meaning I had to squat first. And as I started warming up, I just anxiety kicking in, and I just go outside and I start vomiting and vomiting. I probably lost like 5 to 6 pounds of water. That
Dude,
happened to you too?
dude, that happened to me for I've competed, I think 7 or 8 times. It happened to me every single time, which is why I stopped competing.
Man, I don't know what it is,
It's the nerves,
but
man. You feel like you have a pit
it,
in your stomach and you're just like that. But you tell me if you feel the same. I vomited, but then as soon as I finished squat, I got my first squat in, I felt completely fine. That at least
yep.
each time. After I got the vomit out, I got
So
the first squat in.
yeah, I got the vomit. I didn't get my first squat. I didn't get my first. So, so it was even more stressful. I got my second squat. I got my second squat. I retook my opener, and I think I got my third squat. I think I got my third squat, and I think it was like, I opened it at like 365. I missed it on depth, and then I pick it again, and then I think I jumped to like close to like 400, like 390 or something, 21, and I get that. So pretty happy with 391, but at that time, like I said, I was not feeling good. I was trying to refeed, but my stomach was cramped up. I couldn't get anything there. And then probably bench 100 kilo, like 220. And the pulls, I opened with 551, get it, and I remember like people like starting cheering me up, and I was hearing in the background, they were like, "Did you see this kid like warming up? Like he he was doing like 230 on the deadlift on the warm ups, and he's like nobody knows him and stuff." I was like, "Oh, okay." And then so I played with 250, and it went good, and then I went 255, and I think I did 262.5, and I ended up with a state record on my first meet on the deadlift, 598. That's what I pulled, and I was super happy. I was super proud because that was the goal. The goal was to go there and break the VA state record for the USPA at that time. So I got the goal and I got the total. So I was super happy. I think it was like a 1,200 pound total at the time.
And I mean, look, first meet, only been powerlifting a year. Not many people jump in and just break a USPA state record like that. Obviously, state records are low hanging fruit, right? But a lot of people in that low hanging category, of amateur level power lifters, that's what they strive for. That's what they aim for. And they work towards that for a year or two. You being able to accomplish that in your first meet, I think you already knew you were a good deadlift specialist and you had a lot in you, right?
Yeah, I knew from that point when I broke that first state record, I was like, okay, um, I could potentially do something with it. So I'm just gonna keep doing what I've been doing and sign up for another meet. And I think it was February. And at that time, I was posting on social media, and I pulled the like I said, 589. And towards the end of the year, um, that's when, yeah, that's when King of the List reposted me for the first time, and it really helped me social media wise, because I think you reposted a 635. I did a 640 on pound plates and straps and bumper plates. I did 640 before that meet, and then I ended up being 589 to comp standards. And then I built it up to like 675. I did my first 7 plate deadlift with pound plates and straps. And that's the lift, King of the Lift, we posted towards the end of the 2020 year. And people Like as soon as he posted it, like people were going crazy. Like, there's no way this kid is weighing 145 and he's doing 7 plates. Because at that time, I don't think people were doing that stuff. And obviously, it was like a mix between people being very surprised, being who the hell is this kid? People hating, being like,
Straps,
oh,
baby.
tuxedo, yeah, I
Straps.
don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's like it was like good and bad. And I was like,
Right.
okay, I'll take it, man. There's no such thing as bad publicity because nobody knew me at all. And I started getting a better engagement. So I started double down on the posting like once a day. And I was like, okay, I'm just gonna post once a day for a year and see where my account ends up. And like I said, I did that meet in February, and I think in between that time and February, that's when Colin CT reached out to me, and it was like, "Hey man, you're so strong, bro. Let me sponsor you." So Colin was actually Power Build was like my first sponsor when it comes to like clothes and stuff, and he was being so nice. He was inviting me to those like lifting events, and he was paying for my first few meets and all that stuff. So Colin definitely helped me out and to put me in that scene and introduced me to some of his lifters and his community. And I was really grateful for it because I ended up like visiting him a lot, going to his gym for like after that for like a year or two, like making trips from VA to PA, like almost like every 2 weeks to go and lift at his spots because at that time we only had Power Build, the first location. We didn't have any other location. So I was trying to go there and meet new people and try to do like some sort of not really collabs, but like, hey, let's get a lift together. That was more like let's get a lift in together. And that was on my own driving for like 3 hours, and I was having fun. I was enjoying the process.
Yeah, I mean, well, you were doing it right. New in the sport, people are getting their
Yeah,
eyes on you little by little. And if you want to try to make something out of it, because again, this is 2020, 2021 now, present day, it's pretty easy to know if you open your eyes, there's a lot of opportunity on social media, right? A lot
dude,
in
we didn't have
endorsements, all that stuff, right?
exactly. We didn't have TikTok. TikTok was not a thing. I think TikTok started 2021 or 20 like end of 2020, but I didn't post on TikTok at that time. I was just Instagram dude, posting my Instagram slides, you know.
Right. Yeah, yeah. So take me through. So this 2021 year, I'm pretty sure
Yeah,
this is the year where you had the big breakout and became the fucking
yeah,
phenom, right?
yes,
Is
yes,
that the
yes.
infamous? Is that the what meet was that? Take me through that meet. Let's talk about
I okay.
BS around it.
So, like I said, I did that meet in February at Power Build for Sierra Colin, and it went good. So remember in October I pulled a state record, and then I went to that meet in February, and I ended up deadlifting a national record, 628. I did 628 in February, and then I signed up for the what was it? The first summer, I think it was called Summer Slam. And that's when I met for the first time Johnny Kaufman. That's when I met Travis Rogers. I think that was one of his last sleeved raw meets. And I think he won that meet or something. Oh, no, actually, Phil heard that meet because it was an untested meet. And me, I was tested. And I was just like, let's do it. I was just having fun. I just want to go out there because I knew I was good at deadlifting. I could at least have one lift where I could have some potential to have some lights on it. So, but yeah, it was in June. Yeah, it was June 2021, and that's really when everything started to kick off for me. But went there and squat opener was 444, which was way too high for me at that time because I squatted my first 44 as a third in February. So June I wanted to open with and I was just doing my own thing. I didn't know what I was doing, but when there open with 44, get called on that. I was like, okay, it's okay. I've went through it once, like my first meet. That's exactly what happened. So I'm just gonna retake it. I retake it. and I thought I had it, but it was apparently still high. So I was like, "Oh no, please! Like I have to make this happen." And I remember I was in the back room. I was on my own. I was losing my stuff, and then there's this guy, a coach now. He coached me out right after for a little bit. David Garcia. I'm
Oh, I
sure
love
you've heard
David,
that kid.
man. Yeah, David's
Yeah,
David's the best.
amazing, amazing energy, very badass energy. I like it. He grabs me by my neck. He's like, "Hey, you got this." He's like, "Make it happen." So he took me, he motivated me. He was like, "Listen to my voice, listen to me. I'm gonna tell you down, 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 down. When you scream, when you hear me screaming up, you go up, but not until then." So third attempt, again, it's my opener, right? For trying it to hit my opener for the third time now, and I go down, 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 down. I literally had to pause it and I hit up. So I was like, I grind it. It was probably an RP 12. I was like, oh no way, I just did that. I'm still underneath. And then I hit rack, so I rack it, right? And then when I get out, I scream, let's go! I am a fucking phenom! And then eventually I got DQ'd for it.
Yep.
So, so the funny story is though, I didn't know I got DQ'd. I thought I had a warning, right? So I go and do my bench press, and by the time I go on the deadlift, and by the time I'm on my second attempt on deadlift, I load an all-time record, the first 700-pound deadlift for 148 now. I load that, and there's a lady that comes to me like that was a refing, and she's like, I hope you're aware that this doesn't count, right? It's just exhibit. I was like, what do you mean it's exhibit? She's like, well, you got DQ'd. I was like, no way. Like the guy came to me and said he's giving me a warning. I was like, yeah, no, apparently you got DQ'd. And from what I hear is because I was not here for the rule briefing, but they give you a first warning in the rule briefing, no cursing on the platform. That is considered as one. Since I cursed on the platform, is my second strike, so I was out, and there's nothing I could do from there. So I was very sad and frustrated, but then it brought some. Everybody started talking about it, and good and bad. Right,
Yeah.
I got a lot of hate for it. I got a lot of hate, and I was like, oh, I got a lot of love for it. I was like, oh no, this kid is so fun. So I was like, yeah, it's all good. If people now people know what to call me, the Phenom.
Right.
And originally, the Phenom was firstly the first person that called me the Phenom was Ryan, a six pack actually. He called me the French Phenom when he posted my 675 deadlift for the first time.
I love it.
So he gave me that name.
I remember seeing that video. I remember everyone posting it. I remember also people arguing like, "Oh, this is what they got DQ'd for." Like, "Oh, this makes sense. This doesn't make sense. This is ridiculous." Da 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 da. The lift was good
A lot of
compared to his others, whatever it was. Um, but yeah, I remember all that. And that was the first time I saw you. And that was the first time I went to your page. I'm like, man, this kid is really strong. And I was like, oh, this kid is like 16 years old. You were already in your 20s, but it was just
yep,
a skinny dude doing some crazy
yep,
shit, right?
yep, yep. That was it. That
I
was
love
it.
it, man.
That was a funny time. That was a fun time. Yeah.
And then I mean, hey, look,
Everything happened.
now that just makes a reason why everyone wants to do WRPF because you can say I'm a fucking phenom and we're not going to kick you out, right?
Exactly. I can say whatever I want, do whatever I want. That's why I love the WRPF.
Hell yeah, man, I
Mm-hmm.
love it. So
What's confusing is it only the USPA? Because I hear people cursing in the USAPL and probably in the IPF too, and they don't really get a sanction for that or
I
like
I think it's really just the USPA that has like some of those people who are extra power trippy and wanting to pick and choose on those little things,
okay.
because I agree. I've been at plenty of USAPL meets. I've hosted USAPL meets where, kid curses and celebrates and you don't see the judges running up to him like, "Brr," you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
it is what it is. But
yeah.
all right. So I mean, look, I have your open powerlifting open. In the last less than 2 years, you've competed a ton of time, a lot of competing back to back, a lot of building your total, and many all-time world records along the way, right?
Yeah.
So What was the first all-time world record, and when did you start setting those goals to start increasing your weight classes to get to where you were this past weekend of this current all-time world record?
All right, so let me give you a quick rundown. The reason why there are so many meets that I've done back to back is because I set a goal for myself, and it was to be the first to deadlift over 700 pounds. I wanted to have the heaviest lift in the weight class, period, all across all feds, all ages. And it took me 11 tries. I had to go in a meet and try, no, no, it was not 11 meets, but it was 11 times I attempted that way before I actually got it. And it was probably about like 6 to 7 full meets that I did to get it. And it was crazy, man. Like I remember my first all time was 683 pounds. So it was me being number one spot. So I tied number one with 683, and that deadlift brought so much like controversy. I remember Joe Sullivan said it should not count it because obviously the way I was deadlifting, it was probably a little bit soft and it was probably a little bit gifted. It was a 2-to-1 lift. And that was the first time I actually was number one spot. And I did 683, and that was at the Bear Cave 2022. So last year, that was May, around May. I think that was around May. That was my first time matching being number one in the 148. So I did 683. And then the following week, at the Bear Cave again, I did the 701, the first 700-pound pull in the weight class.
And I see you
And
opened at it, miss, make, right? Because it was all
exactly,
for you.
that's the goal. That was the goal.
Nothing
Why?
else fucking matters, right?
Yeah, I'm literally going there to hit that number. So why would I even have an opener? I'm going there to lift that number. So I'm gonna put it as a first. I'm gonna do my warm-ups in the back, and I'm gonna make it happen somehow. And I did on my third attempt. First attempt, the bar didn't even budge. It probably got up to my not even. It, I don't even know what happened. I tried to pull with the bar. I just pulled the slack and I did forward. Second attempt, the bar went all the way up to my kneecap. Third attempt, I locked it out.
I love it.
That just tells you that like I don't lift, like I don't use much strength. At the end of the day, it's all technical stuff.
Right.
Meaning that if one thing goes off, the whole thing goes to shit. Like there's no way I can do it. So,
Which is also
and
probably
I know
looking at your open powerlifting with all these meets, it was always deadlift in mind. Like your squat and other numbers are kind of like up and down, kind of inconsistent because it's like that's just my warm up, right? I'm hitting that along the way. I'm not trying to peak that as much as possible. I might not be at my strongest right now because you accumulate more fatigue from doing something like that. But the deadlift, any day of the week, you can go in and try to hit something, right?
exactly. The main goal was during that time. It was when I was like deadlifting. I had deadlift program 4 times a week. So the main goal for that year and a half was just get that 700-pound deadlift, which I eventually did, and I'm happy to say I was the first because it's good to have a world record, but saying you were the first to do something,
Yeah.
it's even cooler. I feel like.
Oh,
Yeah.
100%, 100%. So then from there, it's funny. You took a long time, a lot of attempts to get to that 700-pound barrier. You then decide to go up a weight class, put on some weight.
Yeah.
And since then, you've added astronomical amounts to your pull,
Yeah.
right? From that increase
Yeah.
of leverage of body weight and probably training a little bit smarter as well, right? To be able to make
Very
those
smart.
bigger jumps.
Mhm. Yes, yes. So, I mean, I was squatting like I was always squatting like 500. Like 500 was my number. 500, 510, 520 at the most. And then I had a plateau. My bench was always like 250, 265 on a very very good day. So I was seeing no progress at all on those two lifts, and I was like, okay, Nabil, it's cool, like you have a good deadlift, but like you need to be able to build a total now. I don't want to be known as the deadlift only guy because that's what I was known as to the point like when I post my my comps, right, my my comp lifts, and I just post one lift, which is just my deadlift on the day. People assume it was deadlift only, even
Right.
though I was squatting in. So I didn't like that thing. So I wanted to change, and the only way for me was just to, I guess, gain weight. I had to bulk up. I was forced to bulk up. I forced myself to bulk up and eat more. I was I started the bulk at 150 pounds, and I eventually ended the bulk uh this meet at 175.
Yeah.
So I pulled in 20 pounds of solid mass, but like I'm probably leaner right now, which is crazy. It doesn't make much sense, but it's all because I now actually started taking my diet seriously, my training and my recovery very seriously. Like I make sure that I eat at the same time. I make sure it's the same foods. I make sure it's good quality foods. I make sure I eat my macros. I make sure I get a good 8 hours sleep every day. And I make sure I follow my program. And that's when I really like saw my training like exploding, like closing in a 600 pound squat, like and 330 bench and soon an 800 pound deadlift. So it works. You just gotta dedicate yourself to it. That's all.
100%. And it's, based on those rankings, your most recent pull is the all-time heaviest tested deadlift of all time, right? Beating out Taylor Atwood, someone who's been around doing it a really long time. And then if you look at the rankings, the heaviest deadlift of all time in your class is done by someone who did it full power, but took a token squat and token bench, right? And it's like you easily could try to do something like that to set a bar higher, but the fact that you're doing it the right way and completing a full meet, is a testimony as well. But
Yeah,
leading me to your next kind of goals. I've seen your little whiteboards and stuff like that. I'm sure you have a lot of different next step goals. It is safe
yeah,
to assume one of those next step goals is trying to have across tested, untested everything, breaking that 350 kilo deadlift.
yep, yep. So exactly. So just like I did it for the 67.5, when I did 711 at the Freaks Common at night. So I did 701, and then I did another meet a little bit after that, and I pulled 711 at 148. And that 711 pull broke the tested and untested. And the untested was that the record probably stood for 34 years, man. It was crazy. It was held
Great.
by Austin. Austin. It was a meet where he was competing with Ed Cohen basically. So
Wow.
it's like very well. We don't have footage of it. We don't know if it's single player or not. We have no idea
You just know
what's
it's in
going on.
there,
And
and that's what the standard has been for that class. Right.
exactly. So that's it. That's where I'm heading at right now, where I want to be able to have a pull deadlift that takes both the jog tested and non-tested. And for that, I will need 363, 805. Because right now, the all-time world record uh, across tested and untested is set at 799, which I'm still like, kind of like, it sucks because I was watching the video. His name is a guy, I think his IG handle is the Kazakhstan Phenom. He called himself after me.
Nice.
Yes, yes. But it's back. It's over there in Russia using those weird plays, and it was like he had very fast down command. He lost it, and it was just like kind of like a gift. But it's good for me because they don't give me gifts. Like I'm like every time I go for a world record, they make sure my shoulders are behind the bar. They make sure I hold the bar like I lock out for 2 seconds. They want it undeniable, and I like that. I like that they make me struggle to get it, and I'll make it cleaner. I just need to do it. I think I'm capable of doing 800. Yes.
So looking forward to the rest of the year, like we kind of started it off with American Pro, right? That's what's on everybody's mind right now. That's what everyone's looking at. That's what everyone's looking forward to. So that's where you recently had this meet where you just a tune up and broke an all-time world
Yep.
record. Moving forward in
Exactly. So,
American Pro, what are the goals going into the American Pro?
so whatever I just did this meet, which was a 556 squat, 252.5 kilos squat. I did a 140 bench, 308, and I did a 342.5 kilo deadlift, 765 pull. Those are my planned second attempts. Right? So if I can be uh like in the 1600s on my second attempt, that's perfect because my goal is I'm obviously shooting for the win. So I'm gonna have to be very smart. Obviously, I wanna pull 800, right? But if it ends up being like, okay, the smart game plan here is because I'm gonna push squat and bench, right? I'm gonna try to squat 600 and I'm gonna try to bench like 330 ish. I'm gonna have to see how I feel on the deadlift warm ups to see what would be the game plan. But the, overall, I really want to secure 1700 pound total at 160. Yes.
That's awesome. Where does that leave you in the rankings? Currently,
Like,
very tested, right?
that'll be, I think that'll be fourth best total in the weight class all time, which
That's
is the 74. It's a pretty stacked class. You know, you have
it
Taylor
is
Atwood, you have all those crazy, you have Austin Perkins, you have very, very, very strong individuals. So being able to be that 75 guy, you know, but in different weight class, I think it's cool, you know. It's like it shows because I was talking with them and I just met Austin for the first time last weekend when where my friend Crane competed at her USFTL regional meets. Um, he was telling me like he did the 717 deadlift on stiff bar, but he tells me he can't do it on a deadlift bar.
interesting.
Even if he tries to, he's not good for with the bar. And I think that's most of the people they assume like, oh, because you pull on a deadlift bar, you're a cheater because it's that much easier. Not really. I mean, if you give it enough time, you'll be able to be good at both, right? Just like
Right.
anything. Spend some time on stiff bar, it'll eventually catch up to your deadlift bar. Spend some time with your deadlift bar, it'll eventually catch up to your stiff bar.
Agreed.
So I feel like yeah. So I feel like there's a lot of people not understanding this concept of like, yeah, at the end of the day, it's the same weight on the bar and it's the same movement. So just go and lift the weight and make it happen, you know?
100%. So moving forward beyond that, these goals for the American Pro obviously are coming in at the 165 class. I saw on your whiteboard the other day you had something about 181. So, and you had made a post saying you want to try to dominate and go up. So, what does that look
Yep.
like long term?
So long term, I wanna I cannot go above a class if I don't hold the all time world record deadlifts. So every weight classes, I'm gonna have to stay in there until I break the all time for both tested and untested. So now we did the tested in 75. We need to take the untested, and that's only when I'll be able to fill up the 181 and try to get those records as well. But also it's funny because like yeah, my deadlift gets there, but like now because I'm gaining weight also my squat and bench, my sub total is building up. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and
And then eventually 198. I need to be a 90 kilo. I'm too tall. I'm too lengthy and tall. I'm 5'9". I can't just stay that lean like for like my whole career. It's not good.
I
Need
love
to
it,
gain
man.
that weight.
Pull him like an Ed Cohn and a John Hack, just little by little working your way up. And you're still so young to it, in the
Yep.
grand scheme of things, even though you aged out of a junior, you're still so young to the sport itself and have so much untapped potential. So very excited to see it. Me, someone, who's just a big fan of the sport and doing what I can behind the scenes and an athlete, I'm a I'm
Yeah.
a I'm a fan. I'm a coach. I'm a business owner. All first, second, third, and an athlete like 10th. So I love watching it and watching everything that you guys do and being able to be a part of it. And I'm super excited for the American Pro. Super excited to see you compete there. Super excited to see everyone else compete there. And yeah, man, I love getting to know a little bit about your goals going into it, and I'm sure everyone's excited to see it happen.
Oh yes, I have a plan, and it's a 10-year long plan, and we're like 3 years in now. So we're just launching the rocket. I'd say it's
I
just the
love it.
beginning. Yep.
Hell yeah, man. So let everyone know where they can find the Phenom. We already know we're going
Uh,
to see you at the American Pro. Let them know your social media and anything else you want to sign out with.
yes. So they can find me on social media. So Instagram will be my first name, Nabil, Nabil. underscore, double underscore, actually, Lahlou, my last name, Lahlou. If for the younger generation, if they want to follow me on TikTok, it's the same thing, same name, Nabil, Nabil underscore Lahlou. And on YouTube is Nabil Deadlift. So that's my name
That's
on
an easy
YouTube.
one.
So if you wanna, yeah, Nabil Deadlift. So if you wanna follow me there too, feel free. But
Awesome.
I'm super excited for this American Pro, man. I remember last year being like just so close from everything, just being with like you helping out, setting up and everything, and just being part of the more like the stage group. And I've seen all like I don't even know how many all-time records were broken down. It was just it just motivated me so much to work hard. And I was like, next year I want to get there. I want to go there. And Michael was telling me he was doing a test today, and I was like, man, that's it. That's I'm gonna for a year I'm just gonna be not care about anything, just be in my zone and try to get as strong as possible to see if I have a chance to play first. I'm
Oh,
going for
yeah.
the win. I'm going for the win.
I'm rooting for you, bro. I'll be there.
Thank you, man.
Host will be there. I'm very excited to see it all happen.
Um,
Thank you for hopping on. Thank you guys for
Absolutely.
listening. I hope you guys enjoyed episode 13 of the WRPF podcast.